Welcome to the Widowed Mom Podcast, episode 215, Widows Unfiltered, an interview with Cindy Arcuri.
Welcome to the Widowed Mom Podcast, the only podcast that offers a proven process to help you work through your grief, to grow, evolve, and create a future you can truly look forward to. Here's your host, Master Certified Life Coach, Grief Expert, Widow, and Mom, Krista St-Germain.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I have an interview for you today, another Widows Unfiltered. Today, I want you to meet Cindy Arcuri. And I love Cindy's story because she's another one of those widowed mom clients who didn't really know what she wanted to do when she came to coaching. And I know you hear these stories. I have women come on the podcast and tell their story, and they're doing amazing things. Cindy is doing amazing things now in the world, but she didn't know that coming into coaching, right? And I'll let her tell you the story. But what she knew was that if she didn't support herself and invest in herself, she probably wasn't going to get where she wanted to go, even though she didn't really know where that was exactly. And then through the process of coaching, she got clarity on that. She decided what she wanted her mission to be in the next chapter of life. She decided that she wanted to go become a life coach. And now she has her own business, Enjoy Work Coaching, and she's helping people be happy at work, which there's so much value in that. So I hope you enjoy this interview with Cindy, and we'll get into it. All right. Welcome, Cindy, to the podcast.
Thanks, Krista. Great to be here.
It's so strange when you haven't seen someone for a while that you're used to seeing on Zoom, and then you see them again. And it's like, it really does feel like kind of a time warp. It's like, when did we coach and what's happened since then and all of that? But it's really fun to see your face. So let me, instead of introducing you, I'll just have you introduce yourself. So tell listeners who you are, like how you came to be a widow. Who is Cindy? Tell us the things.
No problem. Thanks, Krista. Well, I'm Cindy Arcuri, and I became a widow on July 30th, 2020, when my husband of 30 years passed. Joe had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 4 years earlier, and we had a lot of hope, a lot of great time in that 4 years, but unfortunately, when it came back the last time, it hit the liver, and he actually went fairly quickly, about 2 months. Unfortunately, I had just retired in May, and we were getting ready to have what every couple hopes to have, which is those golden years. And so, unfortunately, I didn't get to do that with my Joe. But, I'm getting to do a lot of fun stuff now. And he would be so happy to know that I'm on this part of the journey.
I think it's such a challenging time when it happens. Like when we see it happen right when, people have this vision for what life is going to be like, maybe when they're empty nesting or right at the retirement mark, where you just really have this picture of what life is going to be like. And then, it doesn't turn out anything like that. What did you imagine that the two of you would be doing after you retired?
Yeah. So, we always talked about our 5-year plan, our 10-year plan, or what it was going to look like 30 years from now. So, we had a great relationship. It was a marriage really of partners and strong supporters. And, we were older when we got married. So we often said we didn't have any excuses. So we kind of, we just envisioned our life together, like traveling. He always thought I'd have my own business. I had a long career in HR, and I do training and development of leaders and leadership coaching. But he always thought I would have that. So he used to say he would be my chauffeur. We'd be going from city to city. And, he was an avid, he loved sports. Every city we'd go to the Major League Baseball leagues game in that city, and we just had this whole life planned always together.
Yeah.
And that was what was so odd about it, as you know, from so many of your widows that you coach, is all of a sudden it's not there. That whole future that you spent 30 plus years planning together is gone. And that was just heart-rendering. But that's what we envisioned it was going to be like. And then eventually moving wherever the grandkids were so we could kind of have fun with them and sugar them up and bring them back to their parents.
That's the land of milk and honey is what I call it. My kids are with their grandparents. Yeah. So 4 years of a cancer battle, though, off and on, that's a long time too. I mean, that's not exactly, sounds like it happened quickly at the end, but that's a really long drawn out.
Yeah, that was. And, we were blessed in that we found it so early for Joe, right? We found it in right after our trip, actually, to Europe. My son was studying in Seville, Spain, and we had gone over to see some of Europe. And Joe just wasn't doing good. And so he got when we came home, I said, you have to go. There's something off with your system. But, we had our journey through that where, he had to get major surgery. And, he really was always a very fit, kind of healthy guy normally. And then pancreatic cancer, most people don't find it till late, but we were so blessed. We found it early. And so his diagnosis was actually for quite a long time projected to be good. But then when they found it a second spot around the celiac artery, like 2 years later, and that caused tremendous pain. Tremendous pain. It's a journey of a lot of pain with that particular illness, and as it is for a lot of cancer patients. And then, at the very end, we didn't realize it had then come back a third time in that liver area, which just, he just had gotten so thin and so, unhappy with his physical appearance. So we went all through that journey together. But, my role in all that, Krista, I always felt like so many spouses that your role in all that is to maintain positivity. And so, it was so hard to really accept, even though physically I could see him getting smaller and smaller. It was just so hard to accept that he might actually die from this disease. And, denial's a great coping mechanism. We talked about that in our coaching. Denial helps you through that tough time and to remain a hope in the end for them.
What was it like for you, in those like really early days of grief after Joe died?
Oh, I was a mess, really. Everybody has their role to play in the family, and I come from one of three sisters. So I'm the middle child, and I've always had leadership roles. So everyone sees me as the strong one, right? My dad kind of raised me to be the strong one. And all of a sudden, I was a mess. I was just so unsure of the woman who was existing in my current body. It was almost like at times I had this tremendous widow's fog. I've never had fog. Like people would hope I have fog in my leadership role. Like they would hope I'd forget stuff, right? But I was always like, hey, how are we doing on that? And do you need my help on this? So I just was in a fog. I was so devastated and sad. And as you know, grief is all these different emotions, right? It's not just one emotion, but no one teaches us how to get through.
How did it compare to what you expected? Like, was it a huge surprise to you that your confidence was like shot?
Yeah, because I had, 60 some years of being that strong, kind of independent woman to find myself in this crossroads that, almost in a hole, like, how do I get myself out of there? And, I had been through grief before. I had lost my mom and dad, lost my in-laws who I was extremely close with. We were caregivers for all four of our parents. And so, I thought I knew what grief was. This is, I think, what the message I would like people to know. Even if you've been through grief, going through grief as a widow is totally different. The other times it shook me and I had sadness, but it never created this this
Mhm.
woman that I was, just crying all the time.
Yeah.
And honestly, nobody knew how to help me because no one's been through the journey yet.
Mhm.
We're kind of even in my early 60s, but no one close to me had lost a spouse. So that
Yeah.
was the other thing that was really challenging. You have no community or network.
Mhm. And then if everyone's used to turning to you as the strong person, and then that's not a role you're able to play in those moments, I'm sure it was very disorienting to the people who saw you in that way. What did you do in kind of the earlier days for support? What helped you?
Yeah. So, one thing that really helped me was just allowing almost the crazy emotions, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, in the very beginning, it was just tons of tears. My sister was great, my local sister. She allowed me to just cry. She didn't try to say it was going to be okay. She just sort of sat with me, which was,
Mhm.
I look back on that now and think what a gift that was. Her and my other sister. And then I think you buffer. I buffered with a ton of stuff that just to help me get through, probably drank
Mhm.
more wine. I love
Mhm.
red wine, but I probably drank more wine than needed to and buffered with things like Netflix, but that could be like I could start turning on a show or a movie and all of a sudden it's a widow and I'm like, okay, I got to get out of this. And,
Yeah.
somebody should
Surprise.
have a warning. I think we need warnings on all the shows, right, Krista?
And
Don't
all
watch
the
your
Disney ones and the Pixar ones and all the ones that you think are going to be happy and then somebody's dad dies. Yes, I do.
yeah. It's like you just got to. So I think that for me, that was the journey in the
Mhm.
early. And then, I just didn't want to get stuck there. It was so easy to get stuck,
Mhm.
that belief that where I was where I was always going to be.
Mhm. Yeah. So how
Crazy.
did you find the podcast first or how did that all happen?
Yeah, so it was so crazy, right? Because 2 months earlier, one of my dear friends of like since first grade, we've been friends, lost her husband after 1 year of colon cancer.
Mm.
And it was during COVID, so she couldn't really have everybody she wanted at the funeral because of COVID. And so she had asked me to help her plan a celebration of life outside in her backyard. And so I was doing a lot of research on that, and somehow your ad on Facebook came up.
Hmm.
And I saved it because, I started to think like Patty may need this. I thought it was too soon, right? It was like in May, like late.
Mhm.
Then, you know how when you save Facebook, it will pop up. But
Yep.
wait, this is how strange. I know I was destined for you. Fast forward, it's like 7 weeks later, I'm in the hospital in the third hospital stay in 2 months with my husband, Joe. And we just find out, and he tells me, honey, I'm dying.
Mm.
And I was a mess, right? And it's like, you have to fight. You can't give up on me. He's like, I've tried giving you, it's always been my goal to give you everything in our marriage, but I can't give you that, right? And so he goes to bed. They were wonderful with me. It's still COVID. They let me stay.
Mm.
But I wanted to let him sleep. And I went out in this quiet room, and your ad for Facebook pops
Mm.
up as a reminder. And in that moment, I knew this was always meant for me.
Wow.
And then after I lost Joe, I started listening to the podcasts. You had those
Mhm.
really great ones, those first ones, the Now Process. And honestly, Krista, the Now Process from the podcast got me through the early weeks of my grief.
Oh, I'm so glad you had that so early on.
I mean, it was so helpful because I just didn't know even how to process all this crazy emotion. Because we said, it's not one.
Yeah.
So that's how I found you. And then I just kept listening to the podcast.
Mhm.
And then no one was helpful because no one had been through it. I shouldn't say no one, but I mean,
Yeah.
how were they going to help me through a journey they hadn't been through?
Mm-hmm.
And then I just started following you, and then all of a sudden I signed up and we did a one-on-one, I think in October, and November I joined, and you felt I was ready to join, which I was grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and November I joined with a great group of women, and we went all the way to May, and we continued to meet like monthly, and even now
your group,
together, our group. Yeah, we call ourselves the November Mom Goes On group.
Oh, I love it. So how did it compare? What did you expect coaching would be like? And then what was it like?
I really didn't have any idea what to expect. I've been a career coach as part of my HR responsibilities and a leadership coach. Mm-hmm. But I had no idea of exactly how you were going to put us through this journey. Mm-hmm. And my workbook came, right? My workbook arrived. And I was like, oh, I'm so excited, right? And I wasn't really very comfortable in Zoom and the technology and Slack. And I got all great on that. And you walked us through it. And I think my expectation was that you were going to help me, that you had a path forward, that I needed that help. And maybe it's just my perspective, but I think as women, we don't always invest in our own health or our own well-being. You know, I kept thinking like, should I be doing this? Should I not be doing this? But I knew that I needed your help to get through and process it if I was ever going to get back to enjoying my life again.
I love that you brought that up, because I just think we're not taught to value our own wellness. Like, we're taught to help other people and, you know, be the caregivers and prioritize service, but we really aren't taught that our mental well-being and what we want, even if it's beyond mental well-being, even if it's a good career, right? Like, we're not taught to invest in ourselves in order to get what we want outside of formal education.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that just knowing that I couldn't get stuck there, that would not be what Joe would want for me, that would not be what I would want, and that would definitely not be good for my son and his future family. So, you know, I was so grateful. It was honestly exactly what I needed, and just such a life-saving.
Well, and you really took it seriously. You showed up for calls. You had your workbooks due. I mean, you really went for it.
Yeah, I have to tell you, it was perfect for me. I mean, the outline was great. You know, we had the workbook. It wasn't so overwhelming that I couldn't get it done. It was the right amount of time. And so I showed up. I was anxious. I learned also from so many of the other widows being coached on the call. And, you know, some of them, I love the fact that after month one, you had put us with other people that were further along. And I remember reaching out to a few of them, and they said, where you are now is not where you will be when you're done with Krista's program.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I'm
so glad.
Yeah. I could see it and hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, I know some people just love a model that, you know, everybody starts and finishes at the same time. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I love being able to have, you know, people who are in all different places, because, you know, when there's a woman who is just a little bit further down the road from you, but yet she knows exactly what it's like to be where you are. She's getting help herself on the things that she wants to work on, but she's also motivated to help you because she remembers and it feels good. And I just think that that community feel of everyone supporting each other as they work through the program is magic. I love the cohort model. So at what point, because I remember coming up on the end of your 6 months where you were kind of trying to decide, all right, am I going to continue and am I going to do the master's program? Or maybe I think I might want to get, you know, another training here and become a certified life coach. What was that like? When did it kind of enter your mind that maybe you might want to get certified in the style of coaching that I do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had begun to see the power, right, of the model and how you were able to move people through really what I consider one of the hardest journeys that people have to go through, losing a partner.
Mm-hmm.
And so seeing the power of that model, I was like, you know what? This is the missing piece to help me move people when I'm career coaching them. Because I had
Mm-hmm.
begun, because it was COVID, I had begun doing career coaching with some family members, right, who found themselves all of a sudden out of work. And I was using the model with them, but I felt like I needed more. I needed more training in it, more knowledge in it. And then I was also talking with GE because I was an HR senior manager there at a very large plant. And so I used to do a lot of training and development and leadership coaching, and they were encouraging me to get my executive coaching certification.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of like at a crossroads. Do I join your master's program? Do I get life coach certified or the executive coaching? And I considered all three. You were kind enough to do a one-on-one call with me where you talked about, the life coach curriculum, why you
Mm-hmm.
chose there. I did more research on it. And I realized that that's where my heart is. That's really where we empower people to transform their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what you need, whether you're working through the loss of a partner or whether you're deciding you need a new career or
Mm-hmm.
whether you just want to improve your current relationships with your family.
Yeah.
That's how I ended up getting life coach certified. And I've been certified since last May.
I
Yeah.
can't believe that much time has passed. I really do sometimes not know what happens to time. So when did you start getting the idea of, the Enjoy Work coaching business that you have created now?
Well, I've always been on a mission to improve the lives of working people, but it became very clear to me that this was my mission in my semi-retirement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because one thing you really helped me with, Krista, your coaching was to look at what the future could hold now. And one of the things is to give ourselves permission to create the future we want. Because I think, in a way, as widows, we kind of are always feeling they should be here,
Mm-hmm.
or like maybe I'm not entitled to enjoy that because they don't get to enjoy it. A lot of guilt, right? Help me with that, your program. And so when I decided that really my mission is to help people find work they enjoy and get financially free.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so passionate about that for three reasons, right? One, it creates purpose in their life like never before. If you're
Mm-hmm.
enjoying your work, you really have your purpose figured out and you
Mm-hmm.
can live up to your full potential. It creates a better home life for you. It creates a better work life for your employer, but it also creates better communities. I'm all about that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I decided that, people have the right to enjoy work. And that's why my business is called Enjoy Work Coaching. You have that's your right to enjoy
Yeah.
it. You get to define it, you get to create it. And the model helps us do that in my coaching.
I love that you said, when I decided my mission,
Mhm.
because I think that's another area of struggle that we have, because a lot of us are under the impression that we have to go find our mission, or, it feels like this sojourn, like, this, I don't know. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves to figure it out. We think it's something that we can do wrong or mess up, and there's only one right mission to find. And so I love the choice of words that you just had of deciding, because it really is a choice that we all just can make. And then we can change our minds if we want to too. When did you decide that was your mission? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think it tied back to around that toward the end of our coaching together.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was one exercise where you had us rate where we'll be in 10 to 15 years, kind of our
Mm-hmm.
goals. Do you remember that? And that was, I think, almost one of the last exercises we did.
Yeah, it's a
And
relationship with time.
Yeah. And I wrote those down. And so it became very clear to me that that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to create that possibility for people that they can enjoy work again.
Yeah.
And you have to remember, because COVID was hard on all of us, right? Especially working moms. And I was meeting a lot of widows who had very young children trying to figure out their way forward, to create that financial freedom again for themselves without a husband, without a partner, but for their children. And so that capability of, no, you can enjoy work and get financially free. The end is what, we don't really allow ourselves to believe.
So do you think a lot of people come to you and they're thinking, well, maybe I can enjoy work, but I won't actually be able to have the financial life that I want to have?
Yeah, exactly.
They think it's an either or.
Exactly. And we know that because that's our primitive brains, like it's either or. But I had learned through your coaching, and the model is this great word. It's called and.
And I love it.
Right?
Sometimes I think it's easy when I have somebody like you on the podcast who is doing something that's really powerful and impactful in the world. It's helping a lot of people. And some listeners find that intimidating, right? Because they think, well, I don't have a vision like that for I don't have how many years at GE and HR, and I don't even know what I want. And so what I love hearing is that you kind of didn't know what you wanted, but then at a certain point, you used the tools you learned and you decided what you wanted, and then you went and created it for yourself, which is much more relatable, right? Cindy can do it. Maybe other people can do it too. It's not just, of course, you're magical and amazing, but so is everybody else, right? And you don't have to know exactly what you're going to do and what you want to figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm a firm believer that we have this idea that it's going to come out perfect right from the start. I mean, it has grown and morphed and gotten better as I failed forward. I didn't allow myself to. It's like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Well, I try it doesn't work, or it's not what I want to do. It's okay. It's okay, right? And so I think you're absolutely right. Like, it isn't that I'm great. It isn't that I have 25 years of HR experience. And it isn't that I was just as new to the model and the idea of intentionally picking your thoughts to create your results as every other widow going through.
Yeah.
That was probably harder for you at times to coach because I didn't want to feel my feelings. So I was probably terrible in the first few months because all I wanted to do was get to the end. I didn't want to feel anything. I know I was difficult. There were times you said, Cindy, you have to let yourself feel that. Do you remember? She's laughing.
No, I don't want to. Actually, though, what's fun for me is I know every coach has a different philosophy, but I really find it boring when I'm coaching people who just kind of go along to get along. It's way more fun to me to coach people who maybe are a little resistant to some of what I'm teaching or the tools that they're learning, but they do it in an honest way, right? They acknowledge the parts that they're resisting, and then we can have a conversation about it and get curious about it. And then it's interesting. And to me, those people who push a little bit and don't just kind of swallow everything they're taught, those are the ones who really go on to use the tools the most, and they create for themselves a higher level of mastery because they've kind of pushed things to the edge a little bit and not just, been a lemming. So to me, bring on the challenging ones. Those are the ones who are going to use the tools to blow their minds. And that's way more fun for me. So,
yeah. So I really agree and hope that everybody listening today knows it's an individual journey. Don't compare yourself to anyone, and, really allow yourself to take the time you need to feel those feelings and then apply the rest of the tools.
Yeah. I love that you said that. So if somebody out there is listening and they're like, well, listen, I don't really enjoy my work, but how do I know if what Cindy does can help me? What would you tell them?
Yeah, I would absolutely say, look me up at my website. My website's enjoyworkcoaching.com. I give free strategy sessions. They're 30 minutes, so we can have that dialogue, sign up for those. And then I think it's really important, especially as widows, that you understand you're at a crossroads and many things are changing for you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not enjoying work, we can help you get there. I can help you get you there. You know what you need. And so my proprietary process called the connection model really helps you get clear on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We're going to design it based on what you need now. Okay.
Yeah. But people don't have to be widows, right? You're not only working with widows.
No,
okay.
I'm not.
So if somebody's got somebody in their family that's not enjoying working, it's not just a widow thing.
Right. No, not at all. No, I'm passionate about helping widows because I know that your worlds have been rocked, but no. Yeah. And actually, to be honest with you, a lot of moms from Mom Goes On, two of them of my November group, have sent their graduating college seniors to me. I have a young professional program that really helps them, right? You've made this over $100K investment in their college, and then you're worried about them launching successfully and getting independent. And so many parents find that so useful.
Yeah. And they're not going to listen to us as the parent. They're going to listen to a third-party expert who knows. Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah. And so it's really fun. Working with the young professionals is fun, but working with the mid-level senior people who are like, I'm just unhappy. I need to believe me, when you enjoy your work, every other area of your life ends up being
for sure. You think about how much time you spend at work.
Yeah. Yeah. And my clients report that. I mean, on average, Krista, my clients get over a $22,000 per year raise.
What?
Yeah.
Cindy, that's amazing.
It's their results, but the program works. I know it works. It's broken down into those three
So
phases.
They end up like believing in themselves more and then advocating for, more pay and.
Right. It's actually three phases, right? Phase one is getting clear on what you need now to enjoy work. That's where I introduced the model, the assessments. Phase two is selling your value. And then phase three is all about setting you up for success. And I'm the insider, so I know how to teach you how to negotiate your pay raise, something no one teaches you.
So important, especially for women.
Women, we don't advocate for pay raises. And I mean, we don't network as well because we're busy running households. Yeah. And so I teach you all those skills you need to set up for success. And then we go into the new role, whether you've stayed within the company at a new role or you've moved companies with the right mindset to say,
yeah. I mean, you're not going to be able to, negotiate for yourself if you don't believe in yourself. So just that alone, surely shifts things for people's careers. So good. Yeah. Okay. So you said enjoyworkcoaching.com, right?
That's it.
We'll put that in the show notes. Anything we missed?
I don't think so. Just that there's hope out there.
There is hope out there.
There is. And invest in yourself in the time. Don't wait. Invest in yourself. Don't be afraid. You will reap such great rewards. Life gets so much better when you're on the other side.
I love it. Thanks so much for coming in to share your story, Cindy.
You're welcome. Thanks, Krista, for having me.
Yes, we'll keep in touch. Okay, thanks.
If you like what you've been hearing on this podcast and want to create a future you can truly get excited about even after the loss of your spouse, I invite you to join my Mom Goes On coaching program. It's small group coaching just for widowed moms like you, where I'll help you figure out what's holding you back and give you the tools and support you need so you can move forward with confidence. Please don't settle for a new normal that's less than what you deserve. Go to coachingwithkrista.com and click Work With Me for details and next steps. I can't wait to meet you.